Hey everybody, welcome back to the Apartment 83 podcast. I've had a headache all day. I don't know if it's I can't say that it's like seasonally related because it's still like 85 and balmy outside. It's not even like it's cold or anything. I don't know, but I've had a headache all day and it kind of sucks, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there who can identify with having chronic headaches or migraines and shit. It's not fun. Anyway, it's another beautiful week. It's back to school time, literally, figuratively, quickly. I understand that it's not correct, but why does everybody get so pissed off when people say literally? I'm kind of a word, and I know the word Nazi is also a hot button word these days. I'm kind of a word Nazi too, and for somebody who's not great with their vocabulary, their ability to speak, to write, I kind of like arbitrary. It seems arbitrary that I pick the fights that I do with the things that I do about specific words. But anyway, I understand literally is not correct, but up until recently, words like selfie and legit as opposed to legitimately, or as a response to something, it wasn't a thing. And the vernacular changes the way that we talk to each other. So I don't know. I'm just confused by. For me, I don't give a fuck. I realize it's wrong. Oh well. Anyway, it is back to school time, literally and figuratively. Everyone is back for the most part. I think some schools go back tomorrow, but I know most are back. My daughter's been back in college for a week now, and it's got me pondering a couple things. One, in a few years, my son's going to need to go to school, so I need to figure out where either myself or his mom are going to live in order for him to be able to go to a good school. And two, do I take on, and I probably have talked about this before, do I go back to school to finish, to get my bachelor's? I have an associate's. So I go back to get that piece of paper and something that's marketable just because? Do I take on all that extra debt? I'm starting to lean toward maybe on the side of yes. I'm like 51-49 in favor of, I think. But I don't know. Shit's crazy enough as it is right now in my life without having to, real professional, dude, leave your phone on. Without having to, worry about schoolwork and projects and stuff and whatever. Like, I don't know. I wonder if I'm getting in over my head thinking about it even. But I will say that given my current state of employment, after 18 years in the restaurant industry, feeling like maybe it's not the worst idea to go back and get a piece of paper that somebody wants me to have and something that allows me to actually get a decent job. But I don't know. That's something I've been considering, thinking about today. Thinking about a lot actually recently, just sort of in general. But I can't make that total decision at the moment, but I need to make a decision either way, probably sooner than later rather. Just because I love doing this, but this isn't making me any money yet, if it ever does. And if it ever does, I won't be on the level of some of the people who are able to do this for a living, among the podcasters that I admire the most. So I don't know. And even if I went back, what would I go for? People are like, go for business. I mean, it's so general and generic, and math is my bane. I don't know. I'll give it back to you, the people. Get it? Bane. So I don't know. But I was in the grocery store. Completely different topic. I was in the grocery store the other day. Why are people using Coinstar? Is it just because it's that more convenient? I don't know. I find it like some people there's like adult coloring books. Grown-ups find it cathartic to sit there and color. I find that for me, it's like, it's cool, but whatever. Not that, I don't know. That's not my jam. It's like the catharsis for me is to sit there and like put something funny on TV or listen to a podcast or whatever and just roll coin when I have it. And then I have all of my own coin. It's all of mine. I'm not giving a percentage to somebody so I can get like a Starbucks gift card or some bullshit. And maybe I'm wrong in the way that works, but I think that's the way that it works. So I don't know, just a thought that I had. It was annoying me. But, hey, anywhere you can make a business, right? Anywhere you can make money. I got to figure those machines are pretty expensive. And the percentage that they're taking from what you deposit, I don't know what it is. If it's more than 10%, you're wasting your time. But I would think you'd have to have like millions of people use them in order to be able to just pay for these giant machines that just sort fucking coins for you. I don't know. Seems ridiculous. Plus, I keep all my quarters for laundry anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But I don't know. Just a stupid thing that I noticed the other day where it just annoyed me. My bank, when it was still First Niagara, my one bank location actually had a Coinstar-like device that would take all of your coin and then give you a slip of paper, tell you how much it was, and you would just go up to the teller and they would give you the money or deposit it into your account with no fee associated. But the machine broke all the time, so they got rid of it. So I went back to just rolling my own coins. This is a ridiculous thing to talk about for the short amount of time I'm probably going to be talking today. Talking about rolling my own coins in Coinstar. It's kind of absurd, but just some shit that I noticed, and I don't know that I'm complaining about it, but probably, I don't know. This past, the second, I think it was, Fall Out Boy was at the arena, and I like Fall Out Boy, but my hometown heroes, Every Time I Die, had their first arena show as the opener, and I found out so late that I just couldn't get the time off or the money together for the ticket to go, so I am bummed, because I try to see them every time they're home, but from what I understand, it was a pretty good show. It was a good set. It was a lot of fun, and that's awesome for those guys, so fucking kudos to them. When again, having worked in restaurants for as long as I have, I've dealt with every kind of personality, every kind of socioeconomic category for the most part. I don't understand that across the board unilaterally, there's always people who are just fucking miserable. And that's not to say, and I was talking with somebody about this the other day, the idea of like, you don't know that person's struggle. You don't know their story. You don't know what they're going through. Maybe they lost their father today. Maybe their, parent or child or someone is battling cancer or whatever. You never know what somebody's, life is like. You don't know their story. And so maybe they're just taking it out on you because they don't know what else to do. It's just how they process, which is shitty, but like, whatever, fuck us. Right. But I meet people or rather like take care of them, wait on them, whom I'm pretty sure are just miserable pieces of shit in general. And that's how they go through life. And it has nothing to do with how their life is. They're just miserable, or they're shitty, or they're trashy. I don't know. I just had a few instances this weekend, and just dealing with people who, I managed to turn the table around and, the guest and give them a great experience. But it's like, just, I don't know. There's just so much awful shit in this world. Like, why wouldn't we just be fucking nice to each other? Like the first issue I had was, I had these two people, man and woman, who I had missed greeting the table by about 10 minutes. And that's my bad. That's on me. But I had noticed that they were sat in one of my tables and then moved to another one while I was taking care of these two other families, getting them wrapped up. It was an eight top and a 6 top. And these people were sat after them. And when I went over to them and greeted them and I just tried to straighten things out and whatever, my manager had gone over and spoken to them as well. We got them an appetizer on the house and stuff, just to kind of make shit good. We wanted to straighten it out. It was my mistake, and we wanted them to have a good experience. I went back over to the bar area to get the drinks, and my manager comes over and he goes, so the reason that they moved from one table to another, our host told him, was that they had stopped her after she sat them. I feel like they had been there for maybe like a minute, and said, we want to be moved to a different table. We don't want to sit next to a black family. My two other tables, the 8 and the 6, were both black families. And I was like, I just can't wrap my head around that. They're just families hanging out, like kids and, from like 3 to 17 and, between the two parties, everyone's just talking and having a good day. It's a weekend. They're out just hanging out and being people, enjoying all the shit that we're all supposed to be able to enjoy as people. And I still don't understand it. I don't understand that mentality. It wasn't even like, oh, it's a larger party and they're being loud, or the kids are kind of whiny or screaming or whatever. It wasn't even like that, which also bothers me when people do that. I'm like, you know what? It's life, man. Go fuck yourself. But maybe I'll feel different when I'm older. And I've heard children cry for so long. It's like, I need some peace. Then I'll go to only restaurants where kids aren't allowed to go, except that those don't really exist that I'm aware of. But I don't know. I just was really... He told me, my manager told me that, my GM, and he's just like, so, I mean, we're gonna take care of him, but, if, what do you do in that situation? She said to the host, we don't want to sit in they could have said anything else, just like skated around it. But I don't know in this age that we're in, that there's a feeling that you don't have to hide your bigotry, that you're allowed to wear it on your sleeve and be vocal about it, even if it's, on the quieter side to somebody who's of your same race. Like, I don't understand that at all. It doesn't make any sense to me that it's even still remotely a fucking thing. I don't get it, but it happened. And then and those families were super nice. Like, they were crazy. I talked to the one guy for like 10 minutes at the end. He used to be a drummer in a band in Buffalo, like, years back. He used to tour and stuff. He's a singer now. We exchanged information. I'm going to check out his shit. He's going to check out mine. It was real cool. Like, and here's these people just going, we just don't want to sit next to a black family. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I don't know. So I don't know. And then the next day it was just these people they came up to the host stand and said to the host, who is this girl who's this tiny little thing. She's 16. She's, barely a human yet, And the woman goes, we had shit service the last time we were here and the food was terrible, so you better make it good. This girl's 16. It's like her 5th day on the floor as a host without, after training even. So like, whatever that is, a few days, like maybe her 8th shift. Maybe she's been there 2 weeks. How do you come across to who effectively still is a child with that kind of vitriol, like with that kind of venom? And 1, and 2, to a point that I've made before, maybe not on the podcast, but in general in life, if you have a bad experience at a place, and then you have another bad experience at a place, and then you have another bad experience at that same place, why the fuck are you going back? For whatever it is, maybe the stars just aren't aligned for you. Maybe you have an expectation that's not, reachable or part of the, the way that particular establishment runs. People come in there and they complain about the way the girls are dressed. Our dress code for the girls varies. They have different options. There's skirts they can wear, leggings, or, different tops and stuff. Some are a little bit more revealing than others. It's all what you choose to wear. It's all part of the way that the place runs. It's just the concept of the restaurant. If you don't like that, don't complain to management about it, because they're not going to change. Why would we change for you? This is how the restaurant runs. This is how this particular business runs. There's 1,000 other restaurants in the mall. Pick another one. You know what I mean? They wanted to complain, well, yeah, you have a daughter, you understand. I'm like, I do, and that's why she doesn't work here. Because she doesn't want to. She's also an adult and she can make her own fucking decisions. It fucking boggles my mind. I know people, entitled to their opinion, but most people and most people's opinions are fucking bullshit. There's just too goddamn many of us on this planet, I feel like. But I don't know. And that's another thing that, bringing it back to the school thing, it's like, I've just been doing this again, this past week, at the other place, I was bartending, and there's these kids sitting there having a good time, getting drunk at the bar, but eating food, drinking margaritas and whatever. And this woman comes and sits sort of adjacent to them, and some kind of altercation happens. There's an argument, a disagreement, something shitty gets said. I'm busy, working service bar, making the drinks for the servers and shit that they're ringing in. And my manager happens to be there, and so she has to insert herself in the situation. And I guess what it came down to is this group of kids, and when I say kids, they were like in their 20s. They asked this woman, if she would take a picture of them, for them so that they could all be in the picture. And she goes, no. And the one kid was like, well, you're a dick. And she took it as a personal accosting. She thought that she was being physically assaulted by the fact that he called her a dick at her stupid joke. And it turned into a whole fucking thing. I say that to say this, along with these other tables and issues from this weekend. I think I'm just fucking burnt out, man. I think I'm just burnt out on dealing with people's idiosyncratic horseshit. It annoys me. It has always annoyed me. I think it's getting worse. I think it's way more than I want to deal with. So, hang on a second. Alexa, stop. Stop. I had to get a new one. Stop. Stop listening to my conversation. Yeah, right? So I upgraded the iOS on my phone, and now I have an SE, so I know it's an older. I know it's an older phone, the SE, but they say that the planned obsolescence isn't true or whatever. And I have a friend that works for Apple, and they're like, that's not true. And then Apple comes out and says, we're slowing the phones down. I think the problem is, so anyway, to say the next part, everything does run a bit slower, but it seems that it's just taking longer for things to load. And what I'm thinking is, I don't know that it's that they're slowing it down on purpose as much as it is that because of the processor that's in the phone, for example, for as fast as it can process, that when they upgrade the iOS, the other app companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, all change their software as well to allow them to do more things. Well, the more shit that an application has to be able to do in order to work around also the new OS, right? It's going to make it a larger file. It's going to take more time and things to load. And I think maybe that's part of the problem. Is that it's not that they're slowing the phone down, it's just the phone is slower compared to the things that they're putting more and more shit into it. So it's slightly annoying. But what are you going to do, right? There's bigger fucking problems in the world. John McCain died from cancer. I mean, he lived to be 81, and God knows I didn't agree with most of the things that he had as policy, but I mean, there are people out there who have... And I did a little bit of research to validate, and I couldn't really get a clear answer. But I mean, there's people out there who said that he crashed some jets and stuff, and was in all this trouble for like being intoxicated while in the service, and that he only got to where he got to because his grandfather, I think, or dad, or maybe both, were some kind of admiral. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. What I do know is that. In a time where the Republican Party is voting down party lines for certain things that definitely are not in the best interest of this country, but only trying to dismantle what the last administration did. Again, a lot of which I didn't necessarily agree with, but it was less about policy, more about foreign policy and actions rather than legislation. Again, and not always. He was the one guy who, votes down McConnell's trying to turn over the parts of the Affordable Health Care Act, which protect people from all the shit that health insurance companies were, able to do for years and years and years, that excluded people or removed them from insurance, the pre-existing conditions, stuff like that. And, I worked for a health insurance company, and I honestly believe that, that these... not stipulations, but these parts of the legislation were things that were only things that were good, that were going to help people. And those are the parts that were, however it was structured, that were things that they could vote down or turn over, rather than just, they're dismantling it rather than overturning the whole thing. And, whatever your feeling is on the whole situation, that aside, these particular things were things that I personally believe that everyone should have, and the health insurance company should not be able to do or should be able to do, or however it falls. And he was the one guy who thumbs down the thing and really turned it over and said, fuck you. In that single instance, he gained a lot of respect from me. So, what are you going to do, man? I was listening to Rogan's podcast right now, And I'm always far behind. I'm always behind because, he has like 1,140 some odd podcasts right now. But it's episode 1127 with a guy, Jesse Itzler. And what he was talking about is he wrote a book called, I think it's like With the Monks or Being with the Monks, something like that. And he went in New York State, northeastern New York, on the border near Vermont, not upstate New York, ass, all of you. There's a difference. See the map. It's all over Facebook. He went in for 15 days. He lived with these monks. They were Russian Orthodox monks who owned like 500 acres of land, and they built this monastery by hand by themselves. And a few of the guys had been there for like 50 years, and they're in their 70s and shit. And so he was just talking about, you don't have any access to internet, or he didn't have his phone with him or anything. There was an old TV in the one back room where one day a week they sit and they watch the news, like the local whatever affiliate, for like an hour, and then that's it, just so that they kind of have an idea about what's going on in the world. So he gets in the first night, and the guy brings him to his room that's the size of a postage stamp. There's a bed and a desk with a lamp. And he says, all right, we meet tomorrow morning at 7:15 to begin meditation. It's 6:30 at night. He goes, so what do I do until then? And the guy looks at him in all earnestness and just says, think. So he sat there. He set a timer. Maybe he did have his phone. He said he set a timer on his phone. I don't know. He didn't have access to like the internet and shit. I guess he didn't look at any of his social media or anything the whole time. But he set a 20-minute timer, and he just closed his eyes, and he started to think about his mantra. He had done some transcendental meditation in the past, so he had a mantra that he was using. And he's sitting there, and he's thinking about all this stuff. How are my kids? How is my wife? What about this? How are the Hawks doing? He's from Atlanta, and all this stuff goes through his head. And he's like, man, it's got to be time yet. No, you know what? I'm not going to open my eyes though. I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to keep going. He continues to go. He's like, I felt like I was doing it for hours. I finally opened my eyes. I've been at it for like 3.5 minutes. And ultimately, he learned from his entire experience there is that your time has a value to it. The time you have on this earth has a value to it. And he gave this example. He said, so his parents are in their 80s, or 78? I think they're 78. They're late 70s or early 80s. And they moved to Florida. And he goes to Florida to see them, or he had been going to Florida to see them, like twice a year. So if he's only going twice a year, and he gave the idea, so he says, let's just say they only have 5 years left. I don't have 5 years with my parents. I have 10 more visits with my parents. That's not even remotely the same. So when I thought about it that way, I had said, I think maybe last week or a few weeks ago, how many summers do you have with your kids before they're adults? The idea is usually 18. Well, those are the whole summers, but it's what you make out of it. So he decided to strip things out of his life that weren't imperative or important, and use that rest of that time, in the most pleasing and self-fulfilling and efficient way possible. Like, as an example, he has as a hard and fast rule that he used to indulge in, but he has kept strictly to since he got back, since he left the monastery, which was just a year ago. Again, he was only there 15 days. That each day he spends 3 hours on himself. Now, it's not always like a big chunk. It's like I might go running for an hour and then do 20 minutes of sauna, or 15 minutes of this, or like an hour of writing or whatever, so that each day he's spending that time on himself. And then he's not upset about not seeing his kids and stuff, because then when he's not spending the time on himself, and he works like a regular job as well, that he's spending time with his kids and his wife and his family. And so when he's spending his time with his kids and his wife and his family, he's not upset that he's not spending time on himself, because he's done that. He's made that time for himself. And I don't know that I have that kind of time on my hands, but I definitely, I can see where that's good. I can see where, in certain scenarios, and maybe not for myself, maybe not for everybody, but for some, that's a good thing to have, because you still get to do you, which makes you a better person to be around. It makes you better as a parent, as a spouse, I think. If you have those things that you do that fulfill you, that make you happy, that are things that other people can't do to fulfill you, make you happy, because it's not about them, it's about you. And saying it like that sounds selfish, but you also have to consider that you need your you time, right? Mommy needs her mommy time. What is mom needs wine or whatever. I've seen t-shirts and glasses a lot lately. I've been packing some things up. And that's just, I get that. Like today was kind of a waste of a day. I had all the intentions of doing a lot of cleaning and some more consolidating after the move here. I'm still in the apartment, so the A3 podcast is still out of its home base for the time being. But I've got a lot more space now, but there's still a lot of things I need to clean up and consolidate or put in storage and, and some deep cleaning and scrubbing. And I'm going to flip the rooms here and go into the larger room with the studio and the baby space just so that there's more space and it's just easier for me and he'll have more space to play and stuff. And that was my intention for today. I spent all weekend helping her move and working. Like, open to close, day to night between, on the last four, let's see, Thursday I had him, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Yeah, so either working doubles or helping move and working. And I was fucking exhausted. I needed a reset. I need a vacation. I need to get out of town for a few days, but that's not in the cards. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna lay chill. I'm gonna hang out. I'm gonna read a little bit. I'm going to take a really nice nap because I know I'm at a can't even think of words. See? I'm at a deficit. 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. I can't remember the dude's name, Matthew something. Again, somebody who was on Joe Rogan's podcast, who is a sleep doctor specialist dude. My vocabulary is so good. He's a sleep specialist, I believe. And he was saying, you need between 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And if you don't get that and you do only 6 at the end of that week, you're in a deficit of 7 hours, at a minimum. And the funny thing is Nas Daily from Facebook. I don't know if you know him or not. Check him out. He's a pretty sweet dude too. He did an episode. He did it in his videos are they're usually about 1 to 3 minutes. They're usually about 1 minute. And he talked about how you're at a sleep deficit and that if you don't get this amount of sleep, it's actually like, he summed it up in a minute, but this doctor, I wish I could remember his name. We're saying, if you have this deficit, right? If you don't catch up and then like stay on a regular sleep schedule the best you can to make sure you're getting the proper amount of rest, because your body needs to be in a certain spot for the REM sleep and everything, that it will shave years off the end of your life. And I'm like, well, fuck, I already think I only have like another 40 left if I'm lucky. Maybe I should be trying to sleep, more often or taking advantage of that time, going to bed earlier rather than staying up and watching the next episode of whatever I'm binging on. But I also like watching the stuff I'm binging on. So, there's what that is. But, with what Jesse was saying is that another thing that he did is he realized that he was watching football. He's a huge football fan, and he would watch Saturday college game, and then he'd watch a couple games on Sunday, and then the Monday game and the Thursday game. And he said, okay, so I'm about to be 50. If I live to I think he said 80, so 78, 80. If I live to 80, that's 30 more years. That's 35,000 hours of television, specifically football, that if I stop watching it, even though he really enjoys it too, which I found to be a slight contradiction, but I understand what he's saying. He can, maybe just be more selective about the games that you watch. That's 35,000 hours over the next 30 years that he could do other things with. So I get it. And, Coinstar, what's my time worth? Well, if I can do it while I'm doing something else, then I'm cool with it. I sit and I'll play a podcast and try to absorb that while trying to write or come up with ideas for stuff to talk about, or things that I'm working on for some comic shit that I'm trying to flesh out. But then I realized that I don't have the brain capacity to go to the dual or quad core processor. I just have the single core. So I'm like from 1995 computer with like one core. It's like a 486. If anyone remembers those. and I can only, kind of really do one thing at a time. I can't multitask like that necessarily. If something requires my attention like that, it's very difficult for me to focus on more than one thing. Because then I'll be like, I'll have an idea. I'll start to write it down. And as I'm writing it down, I'm trying to think it out how I want to write it. And then I've missed the last 45 seconds, a minute of the podcast that I'm listening to, and then have to rewind it back and listen to that again redundantly. And then I go, yep, no, I definitely didn't hear any of that. It was just noise in my ear while I was writing. So time, man. You've only got so much on this planet. And you can't take whatever you have left over with you, because that's not how that works. So be kind to each other. Make the best use of your time. Spend as much of it as you can of a quality level with your kids to show them that you give a fuck, that you care, that you're a good parent, even if you're a crappy parent. I mean, it happens. A way that you can help to turn that around, if that's how you feel, is by spending time with your kids. And the other thing he said too, his phone, he doesn't look at it at night. It's not allowed at the dinner table. He's not checking his Twitter feed. He's spending the time with his family. And I think that's something I definitely need to do. It's got to go away. It's got to stay in the pocket or go in another room. Because I find myself spending way too much time just scrolling on bullshit. I feel bad saying this, and other people are going to say, dude, I spend way more time than that. Or, yeah, you should feel bad about it. It's going to be the spectrum. It's been like an hour and a half almost just scrolling on stupid Facebook videos today. You click on one, and when the first one pops up, you can just keep going. And I'm just watching people make mistakes and, biff when they try to jump a big jump on a dirt bike, or they're playing soccer in their bedroom and they break a lamp, or, bullshit like that. And I'm like, but that's the content that gets the clicks, that makes the money that you're looking to make. So how the fuck do I get mad about it from watching them? Those things usually happen pretty spontaneously. At least the stuff I was seeing today, it didn't seem staged at all to make it, authentic. Otherwise, I'm having to stage it, and then it's really staged, and I don't know. So that's another topic for another time. But guys, thank you so much, everybody, for all the great response, for the continued support. I love you all. I appreciate the fuck out of you people. And take care of each other. Be nice to each other. Be kind. God damn it, be kind. All right? I love you guys. Peace.